All we need is a little understanding. Walk a mile in their shoes. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life.
And here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the True Sweetheart podcast. I'm going to start with something that just really caught my eye, and I love to read people's quotes or what their mantras and stuff like that because it really hits home. And so I'm going to start off with this before I get into who we have on today. Greatness is a choice you make over and over. When you choose personal greatness, big or small, it becomes a part of who you are. This comes from the mouth of Dr. Jen Welter. And I'm just really, really honored to have her on today because if you don't know who she is, you kind of need to. There's a list of things, but I'm just going to read these off really quick. NFL's first female coach in Madden, first female running back in men's pro football, Gradient Girls founder, speaker, writer, groundbreaker, all the things. She is a female trailblazer and such an inspiration for so many women out there. And I'm just really honored to have her on today to tell us all about it, tell us the background story, and just inspire you. So if you're listening or you're watching this, pull over, stop what you're doing, and take a listen. So thank you so much, Dr. Welter. I really appreciate you and your time and everything you're doing.
You are so welcome. It's great to be here today.
Thank you. So let's start. Did you ever think you would be where you are today?
Here specifically, no, because there were, no women in football that you could really see in terms of playing. And that's what I always wanted to do. From a very young age, I used to look at the field and say, they look like real life superheroes and I want to be one. But it was one of the first places in the world where someone ever told me that there was a difference between what boys were allowed to do and what girls were allowed to do. So I tell people I kind of like had a crush from afar. It was like, I loved it and I hoped one day it would notice me. But it wasn't a thing. So it wasn't something I could dream about or prepare for. What I did know is that I wanted to do big things. And I think that was something I always had in my mind. I was this very, little self-determined kid who just really got into things and was competitive, right? Like I was on the math team and I was in all of the plays. I loved playing characters and being up on stage. And I was very competitive in all the sports that I did. My mom would tell you when I was young, she walked in at one time and I was writing on this piece of paper and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm practicing my autograph." And she said, "Okay, what are you practicing for?" I said, "I'm going to be famous one day." And she said, "Well, what are you going to be famous in?" I said, "I'm not sure yet, either as an actress or as an athlete." And I think in what I do now, you do a little bit of both. So Maybe I was spot on.
I love that story. And I love that you envisioned it. You didn't know how it was going to happen, but it was going to happen. And you made it happen. So did you run into roadblocks over time while you were trying to do this? And how did you handle that?
The good thing about football is you learn it's not a question of whether or not you're going to get knocked down. Right. That's a part of the game. It's part of the job description. Right. So then it starts being more of the focus on like, okay, how am I going to get back up? Right. And when I get back up, let me do it with attitude. So you kind of get used to the fact that it's not easy. Right. Like the path that I chose and that so many women have chosen is not easy because, they call football the final frontier for women in sports. So if you got into it thinking it was going to be an overnight success, wow, I envy your confidence. And so everything to me was about stepping up to all of the challenges that the game put in my way, which means there are going to be challenges, right? That is going to be part of the journey. And, try not to get too stuck in one way of doing things or too married to it has to be this way or the highway, because, it's not one way. Right. And I think that's, I had somebody call me the resilient Jen Welter, and I was like, well, isn't that the truth? Right. Like, I don't actually really know how to do it any other way, because we've had to be creators, like females by nature, especially in sports, it's harder. So, the road is one that you're going to be multiple at all times, right? Like, a guy might be just a football player. No, like a female is a football player. She's a marketer. She's, she is a publicist. She is a salesperson. She is, all of those things. And, oh, by the way, she probably has family and has a real job that she has to do also. So I think it's just the perception of what the journey is and how it's supposed to be. I don't really know it any other way.
Were you always this resilient? Were you always able to just get back up? Or were there times where you were just so overwhelmed that you're like, I don't know if I could do this?
Absolutely. And I think that that's human, right? I always say to people, I'm like, they always say like, oh, how have you never quit? I'm like, oh, listen, I might have quit 4 or 5 times today, but then I quitting because I didn't know what else I would do. Right. And what you hope that you do is you don't necessarily quit because this is a part of who I am. Right. But you do maybe approach the situation a little bit differently, or you do step back and say, I need a timeout. Right. Or you say, you know what, today's not the day. Today is not the day that I take over the planet. Today is Netflix and chill. Right. Like, and, being able to say like, hold on, timeout, something's not moving right. And I might need to think about it a little bit, or, shift my focus so that my energy gets redirected, or I come up with a new solution. I think that's a lot of it, and I do a lot of things too. So, I try and make sure if it's like, we'll use physical training as an example. Like if I wake up and I'm, hurting, well, I might focus on recovery, or I might just do a nice stretch and then get a workout in later, right? Same thing with business. It's like if like yesterday, my computer went away and I was frustrated. It wasn't downloading documents, and everything on the computer was driving me batty, right? Like it was like, okay, this is not the computer day. Then what do? Do you quit? Do you throw your computer out the window, or you say, you know what, time out computer. I can do some stuff on my phone, or I'm going to get on the phone and make some of the calls that I need to take, instead of just sitting there and, because I did that for a little bit and my computer would have ended up probably in the river outside. So, I think life is that way too. Sometimes you need some smarter voices than yours. One of my strategies is always, if like energy feels blocked, if it feels stagnant, get up and be physically active. Move your body, because it also helps move your mind, right? Like, you get those endorphins and it's like, oh, why didn't I think of that or talk to that person, or, but I think too often people get that fight or flight, and it's like, I have to be right here. And, they kind of fight themselves out of being able to look at the situation in another way. But don't think you're going to be all things to all people on all days. It's not the case.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, because I think in today's society, we are so, our reactions are so different now. We lose patience so quickly. We just sit here all day. We forget that there's still, you could get up and say, it's okay, I'll come back to it later.
Yep.
We just get so into it.
Well,
And
and
it's
we
hard.
have such an instant gratification society, right? Like, Instagram and all of that stuff. They're not showing the work, the grind, oh, I have to do this and I don't want to. They're not showing the like anything but magic moments. And I think it gives this false sense of what the work looks like and what it takes to get there. I had somebody tell me once I was an overnight success, and I was like, yeah, 20 years in the making, right? Like overnight, it's not like, I'm like, I've been playing this sport for 20 years, right? Like, and sacrificing, and practicing and paying to play and doing all those things. And so the work has to be there, right? And then what you want is by the time the spotlight gets there, right? Or by the time the stakes are high, that you've done the work to be prepared so that it's like, okay, it's go time. It's not like, oh, what am I doing? There will be moments of that for sure. Like, an NFL press conference, that was one of those moments when, you're used to being a woman in sports where it's like, hey, do you want my autograph? And people be like, did you ruin my t-shirt? Like, what's going on? Right? Like, they'd be like, don't write on my t-shirt. Why would you do that? To all of the sudden, standing room only, lights, camera, action, moments, but the work was always there. It's just that when the lights turn on, they're so bright that that's all people see because they weren't with you on the journey.
Yeah. Do you feel pressure you've done groundbreaking things. You are, the person that people are like, if she could do it, I can do it. So do you feel pressure, or you just tell people, well, what would you say?
It's absolutely pressure, but it's also good pressure, right? Like life isn't without pressure.
Yeah.
And the way I deal with the pressure, honestly, is I look at kids. Mm-hmm. Politics is tough, doing big adult things. Those are tough, right? Like there is pressure there. There's right and wrong answers. There's people who love you for it. There's people who don't, no matter what, you're divisive in your existence, right? Like a first means you changed something. And if somebody didn't want that change, they may not like the person who did it. So you have to know that you're not winning popularity contests in that way, because there are people who, don't want change. And so, I remember times when that was just overwhelming, right? Because I'm like, why are you mad at me? Right? Like I'm a nice person. I try and help people. Like, it wasn't like there was any scandals about me. Like I just, I came in and I happened to be a football person and have a PhD and the guys liked it. And yet, meanwhile, you can be that person in one space and the outside world doesn't see you that way. Mm-hmm. There were some cruel articles. There was, I got death threats. Those things are very real and very hard. And I never wanted those things to be my narrative. So I would take them and then put my war paint on and put my face out to the world, because I didn't want to give anybody any reason that they could close the door on women coaching football. Mm-hmm. Right. So if it was hard, I looked to all of the women that I'd played with for so long, and knowing that, there were women who could have done just what I did. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and qualified to do it. I was in no way the only one who could do it. No way. I just happened to be the one who did it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was doing it for all of us. And that meant I had to be strong, and I had to find strength that, if it was just me by myself and they were going to give me death threats for just existing, probably not. Yeah. But for all of those women that I cared about, yes. And at one time when I felt lost and I felt separated from the game of football, and I felt like, I had done these big things and yet still didn't, kind of didn't feel like I had a place at that time, right? It was like I was trying to do a lot for the women, but was still a little bit of an outsider with the guys. And, I wasn't actively playing or actively coaching. So it was kind of like I was a little bit in each world and trying to build bridges and feeling like I could never do enough. No matter how much I was trying to do, it was never enough. And I started to wonder, like, why am I fighting so hard, right? If it feels like I'm fighting by myself, why am I fighting so hard? And I decided that the reason I had to fight so hard was for every little girl who, like me, was told she didn't fit or told she wasn't enough or girls didn't do that and that they didn't have someone to look at because I didn't have a poster of a female in football player that I could put on my wall and say I'm going to do that, right? And so the thing I started to say is if I'm not the one who does that, then the wrong woman was the first female coach in the NFL. And that's when I started Gridiron Girls. I remember even that being harder than it felt like it should be. I think that's the part that gets really tough is like you do big things and then immediately it's like, okay, what's next? Like that wasn't enough, right? And nobody's got a roadmap for you. And you see the bigger problems, right? Like, okay, I'm going to do a book, right? Like that seems logical. And then all of the publishers turned it down and said, women in football doesn't sell. And I'm like, pretty sure I was the first. So how many times have you tried? Well, they've never tried, but they like to repeat patterns of success. And so there was no pattern that they could justify, that this would do well. Right. So then I'm not, I fought to get in that. Now I get turned down by the book people. Now I get this, it's like the higher you go, the more, the more universal the problems become. Right. Like I was so used to being just head down in football and we got to fix football. And then it was like, oh my gosh, there's lots of problems in, say, women in sports and then, women getting book deals and media. And you start to think like, oh my gosh, like there's so much here. And how do we climb out? How do we win? And so when the girls' camps, they said they wouldn't work, I was like, you know what? Okay. And it pissed me off enough, right? Like, that's what I say. I'm stuck on stubborn sometimes. And that's why the logo for Gridiron Girls literally is fingernails through a football because I drew it myself because I didn't have somebody to do all that stuff for me. Everybody imagines there's this giant machine around me that's like PR and marketing and a manager and an agent. And I'm like, yeah, you're looking at her. Yep. PR right here. Mark. Yeah. Doing it all. Right. And so drew the logo and then got with some of my friends and said, I really want to do this. And they said, all right, let's figure it out. Right. And I self-funded a bunch of those camps. And our goal was to do 12 camps in a year in the first year. And we ended up doing 18 because people were just like, oh my gosh, like, friends of mine who are moms, right? Like my friend Rashmi in Miami, my friend Natalie in Colorado, my friend Julie in San Diego, they were like, let us host a camp here. Like, I want my daughter to have this. And they really picked up and, Cynthia in Ohio, like, and that's just 4 women off the top of my head that were like, you know what, girls need this. They need you. Let me help carry some of that weight. And it was so phenomenal because I couldn't have done it. And just to see that energy. And then, Adidas ended up coming in and really falling in love with the girls' camps. And every time I could give those girls a piece of the confidence that I had in taking on the world through football in this place, in the space that, everybody told me that I couldn't be. And I wanted the girls to see that I had heard it too, but that we could come through. Those girls would give me life, right? Like, the look on their face, the joy when they caught a ball, or a little girl saying, oh my gosh, Coach Jen, I learned a secret. What's the secret? She's like, girls can play football. right? And all of those moments would, get me like, okay, all right, this is the why. This is pick your head up. This is keep your feet moving, because they need you and they deserve you. And you might not have, like, I might not have it in myself. And there are many days when I haven't, but I have it for them. Yeah. And I think that that's where we do great things. If it's all about you, then it's just your ego. If it's too hard or you too big, then you'll just stop. And for me, the world revolves around, that look of confidence on a girl's face, or meeting a girl who hasn't yet gotten to go to one of my camps. And she said, you know what one of my goals is? No, what's that? I want to be in a Gridiron Girls video. And I'm like, right. Like, then I go, I got more work to do.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's so inspiring to hear that you have this why, and you're all these girls are looking up to you, and you're making such huge changes. And I think we need more of that. We absolutely need more people like you to just take the lead and say, okay, let's do it. And not just say, well, it's too hard and I don't know how it's going to happen. You just made it happen. And you had the support system that is amazing that made it happen. So congratulations on that. I can't wait to see more.
Yeah. And relationships are so important.
Yeah.
Like, I remember at the Cardinals press conference, and I still listen to it sometimes. Like, I've listened to it and I'm like, I don't even know if that makes sense. Right. But like, it was a quote that everybody picked up on. And I was like, you can't blaze a trail alone, or you're going to get stuck in the woods. Right. Like, and yet I was like, well, you can blaze a trail in the wood, but you may not make it out. I don't know if that's what I meant to say, but people were like, oh yeah, it's so deep. But I was kind of like, I don't know if that came out the way I wanted it to, but it really is a matter of, it's not about just me, and I haven't done it alone. Right. At football, we have teammates, right. And they are, and I love the sport so much because it has taught me so much about being a good human. Right. On a football field, we are every make, model, shape, size, creed, color, socioeconomic status, educational background, religion, like you name it, we've got it. Sexual orientation. And what we learn about each other, it's not that there aren't differences, right? Like it's not like you can't see that I'm short or somebody else is tall. Like, those differences are there, but we're in a situation where we have a shared vision and goal, and we learn about each other as we are, and then work together to maximize people's very different, very special qualities, right? Like, we work to put each other in a position of success, and we will lay out and block for each other, and we will, sacrifice so that someone else can score. And I think we need to remember that that's how the world works when it works well, right? Mm-hmm. Like, those women who picked up and said, I'll do a camp for you, I couldn't have done it without them.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been nearly as fun. Right? Like, those are then my friends, and I got to impact my friends and, their kids and, their kids' friends. And, one of my friends was so excited about the camp. And then she told me that, her daughter and some of the girls were being bullied. So then, we could add an element of discussing some of those things without making it feel like, oh, like I'm just talking about bullying because you're going through it. Like, I can talk about it like this is just a thing and this is how we deal with it, and make it very special for those girls, not, oh, there's something wrong with you because you're going through it. So I think there's just a real beauty in listening and finding people that think like you do and roll like you do. And, I could have like my sisters in the game of football out on the field with me as coaches, and then in different markets have the girls say, I want to go watch them play. That's right. Yeah, you do. You don't watch me play. I don't live here, but they do. And, build those bridges. So being very intentional about how not only having the camps and helping the girls would help the girls, but how it would help the sport and all the people in it.
That's amazing. That's a genius idea. I'm so happy to hear that, because there are so many girls out there who want to do things, but they're afraid, or they're being judged for it. And we need to bring more power back to them so that they can go ahead and do it. And I think about, since I was in the military, I think about all the women after me who became the first sniper, or became the first Green Beret, or for all these firsts. It's like, that's so amazing to me.
Yeah,
so amazing.
And thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Is an army veteran. He was in Vietnam. I definitely get my code, I would say, from him. He has a silver star and 2 bronze stars. And,
wow.
We laugh all the time. He was like, I was telling him a story. I just said, Jenny, you're just like me. He's like, I was a great warrior and a terrible soldier. And that's you.
Well, thank him.
You're a warrior. You don't get to be a soldier because, you're in the front. So I get it from my dad. I come by it honestly.
I love it. So I think one of the things I forgot to ask you was, besides all these amazing things that you have done and you're continuing to do, who is Jen Welter behind all of this?
Hopefully a good friend, good listener, very, very much a kid at heart, super creative, which I get from my mom. She was an art teacher. My sister actually went to art school, so a lot of people don't expect that. I write a lot, kids' books now, but I always did some kind of poetry or something. Even in my first book, Play Big, which was my adult book, my dad read it and he was like, Jenny, I had no idea you were so deep.
Oh.
So a lot goes on in my head. I definitely get my therapy through working out. I have a beautiful niece and a beautiful nephew who, even cool too, I would have them help me with the books, which was really fun to get their feedback and see what they liked and, how they responded to them. And so that was really cool. And, I have a very small family by birth. It's just, I lost my grandparents very early. So it's just my mom, my dad. I have 1 sister, no first cousins, a niece and a nephew and a brother-in-law, obviously. They didn't happen by themselves. I guess they could have been adopted, but I focus on the niece and nephew because they're cute. Sorry, brother-in-law, dad, and then just 1 aunt and 1 uncle. So a very, very small family, which I think has benefits and drawbacks. You don't have that huge pull of people that you can go to. Mm-hmm. So, but then very much found like a family in football, right? And I think that's also why it's been so significant in my life. So, but a quirky, I like to think that I have quick wit and, that has served me well in a lot of these tough situations. I think I would focus on stand up or being a performer if in some way, if I wasn't, coach, because then, it would be like a political statement on everything if I did it. But, really it's just kind of me being the person that I am. And I found out from some of the people that I coached that I needed to let more people see that, because they're like, Coach, people are kind of scared of you. Like they think you're like really serious. So you might want to like let them know like the other side, like the side that we know that's got jokes all the time. And I was like, okay, all right. So trying to be better about that. But I guess that's it. And I do like to connect dots. Like I like to say, I like to solve human puzzles. I like to really get in and know people and situations and help solve them. And I'm teaching a class for the first time, which is fun, at Ryerson University in leadership communication.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's been really cool. I made my whole class put a live stream on with like 1 hour notice, and they knocked it out of the park the other week because they were, they were really hard on themselves in terms of putting content out there and afraid it was going to be judged. And you know this, you've been in the military. You know the best way to get rid of fear? Just go. Right? Like you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to think about it. Like worry about it over everything. And so I realized we were having class on International Women's Day, right? And I'd been in demand all day, couldn't quite keep up, flustered. And I was like, okay, and here I have all these sports media students, and they have me to themselves for like 3 hours. That wasn't really well thought out, Jen. And so I told them, instead of one of the assignments that we were going to do, what they were going to do is work together to come up with a way to do International Women's Day, and that they had me at their disposal. And I left the room. Well, left the Zoom. And they came up with doing a live stream, putting it on somebody's platform, doing all the graphics and all of those things. And I think they surprised themselves, right? I really do. And I think, things like that to me are special. And that's that I hope I can be that person in people's lives when given the opportunity. So
I love that. That's really amazing. Oh my gosh. What would you want, or actually, what is your goal for the next 5 to 10 years? What would you like to do next?
I don't know yet. My whole career has been about, really stepping up to challenges that I hadn't foreseen before they were there. And so I still have that attitude in, everyday life that, I may not, I know there's a plan for me. I've always believed that. And I guess that's why I don't stress it as much. But I think, I'm not privy to all that information, and that part may not be written yet. And what my role and responsibility is to continue to be consistent in who I am, continue to do my best to be a positive voice and role model, and use my creative talents to, uplift others, right? That's the common thread. If it's speaking, if it's writing kids' books, if it's writing adult books, it's generally what makes me happy is helping other people. And so whether that's going back to coaching full time or something else, I'm not really sure yet. And I think for a lot of us, COVID has been hard in that, because the momentum that some areas had stopped, and then other momentum will pick up. So I am trying to just be open to, what the world has in store for me, or what's building, because I don't think I know that answer yet.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that answer. He definitely has a plan. So we just open up our eyes and go with it. So I love that. So where can people find your children's books and all your books?
All the books are on Amazon. So the kids book series is called Critter Fitter, using critters to get kids fitter through motion and emotion. There are 4 books in that series. Critter Fitter with Busy Bee and Adventure and Movement is a physical book. It's about a 20-minute workout parents can do with their kids. A dynamic warm-up, animal-based exercises that play pretend in the middle, and then a cool down. Then the next book, When a Ladybug Can't Hug, that teaches how to connect through the heart while staying 6 feet apart. And then Wear a Mask Says I Love You goes through all of the CDC guidelines, gives the mask a hero story, and allows kids to be a proactive, positive part of the solution. And then The Resilient Ants is an ant-filled adventure with characters like Brilliant and Disinfectant and Sergeant and Lantern who, who go to self-quarantine and get armed with antibodies and knowledge so that they will have every advantage to getting back to school, back to work, and return to play after COVID.
That is so cute. I love that. Okay, I love that. Now, what would be some final words that you would want to leave for those that are watching and listening?
Just, I've been told I was wrong so many times along the way, right? Everything I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do. And what if everything that everybody told you was wrong about you is actually what made you special? If it's actually what made you right, if it's actually your own special sauce, instead of trying to fit into or conform to other people's ideas, why not really lean into who you are and who you want to be in the world? And it's not easy, right? There are people who aren't going to like you for it, but you're never going to have everybody like you. Doesn't happen. The only time you're going to be neutral is if you're invisible, right? Like as if they don't even know that you exist. That's the only way that no one's going to have something bad to say, right? And then they might even find something anyway. Like, why is there a void here? I don't know. People are weird. So it's life is hard. There's lots of hard. We don't have to be as hard on ourselves at all time, especially not for just not fitting someone else's expectation. It's your life, right? And you get to decide who you want to be in the world. And why not make that decision, be decisive about it, and then attract the people who appreciate you for it, as opposed to fighting to keep people who don't see you for your best self.
I love that. That's so true. And I'm so glad you said that. It's so hard sometimes when we let other people's ideas of us or just their judgment, it can really get to you. So we have to just remember who we are. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
You are so very welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Welter, for your time. And especially thank you for just being you, because I think this authenticity of the person behind all these things that you have done, I think that's what we need to see more of. And I know it's going to be so helpful with our listeners here and make such huge impact. So I really appreciate you. I can't wait to see all the impact you're going to continue to do. And so everybody that's watching and listening, go follow Dr. Welter she's on LinkedIn, she's on Facebook, she's on Instagram. And where else? Anywhere else I'm missing?
Those are the main ones. And okay. Also jenwelter.com is my website if ever.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you.
Welcome. Absolutely. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.